Why do people follow? Why do they give up everything? Family, identity, freedom, for a belief, for a leader. Maybe it's hope, maybe fear, or maybe it's even something darker. When I founded the Eclipsed Path, it wasn't about power. It was about truth, or at least, that's what I told myself. I was just a disillusioned philosophy student then, mid-20s, bitter, and too deep into theories about consciousness, mass psychosis, and the nature of belief. My thesis? It got rejected for being too conspiratorial. Too dangerous, they said. So I did what dangerous people do. I tested it. The experiment was simple. Could I create a belief system so compelling that people would abandon reality for it? I started small. Anonymous posts on fringe forums cloaked in cryptic phrases like, "The Great Silence began in 2012. Those who can hear it are already halfway awakened." I rented a rundown cabin buried deep in the woods 2 hours outside Portland. No signal, no GPS, just a dusty trail that vanished into the pines. I called myself the Seeker, and I offered salvation to the lost. The world ended in 2012, but only spiritually, I wrote. Now the echoes of the old world linger, hollow and blind. Only the awakened can ascend. People didn't just believe it, they needed it. The first followers were everything I expected. They were lonely, broken souls. A war vet who couldn't sleep. A girl whose parents disowned her after a breakdown. A man who lived in his car. I gave them purpose, ritual, the 12 liberations. We'd wake before dawn, face east, and chant a mantra I invented while half drunk one night. We burned effigies made from old clothes and deer bones, symbolizing our former selves. We fasted for days, believing hunger purged the echo's influence. There was one follower though, Rain. She was 19, pale and always watching. One night she whispered to me, "You showed me the truth. My parents were echoes. I'm glad I cut them off." I felt a chill. I had never told her to do that, but I didn't stop her either. Before I knew it, we started growing. By year 4, we weren't a group anymore, but now a community. 30 strong, living off-grid in makeshift cabins. I wasn't the seeker anymore. I had become the shepherd. We wore matching cloaks made from black linen and stitched with crescent moons. We carved a spiral into a dead pine at the center of the compound. That was our ascension marker. We stopped using our real names. Then came the visions. It started with one of them, David. He said the echoes were watching us, that he saw them standing at the tree line at night, mimicking our chants. He claimed they didn't have eyes, that they just had mouths that opened too wide. The others began reporting similar things. Faces in the mirrors, whispers in the trees, hands reaching out of shadows that shouldn't move. One night, David attacked a hiker who had wandered too close. He beat the man with a shovel, screaming, "It's a hollow! They found us!" The hiker died before I could stop it. I buried the body deep in the woods. Later I told the others that David had been judged and punished, that his mind had been breached by the echoes. I saw fear ripple through them like a disease, and that fear made them obedient. As for Rain, she became my second. She led ceremonies when I was away. She started painting her face with black ash during rituals. People followed her without question. But then things shifted. One winter night, Rain came to me. Her eyes were wide, wild. She said, "They are whispering your name, Shepherd. Your real name, the one you tried to forget." I asked her what she meant. She didn't answer. She just stared and said, "They see through you now." That night, every single fire in the compound went out at the same time. No wind, no rain, just total darkness. We woke up to find every one of our animals, our goats, chickens, even our dogs, slaughtered. Their bodies arranged in perfect spirals, symbols drawn in their blood, symbols I never taught them. I gathered the group and demanded answers, but none of them would speak. They just stared at me with their eyes too still and too wide. That's when I saw it. In their faces something was missing, some spark of personhood gone. I tried to leave. I packed what I could, started my old Subaru. drove toward the only road that led back to civilization, and that's when I saw them, all 30, standing shoulder to shoulder blocking the road, silent, smiling. Rain stepped forward. Her cloak was gone. Her face was painted with the blood-red spiral from the livestock pen. She said, "You taught us to see the echoes, but we finally saw you." Then everything went black. I woke up back at the compound, alone. My cabin was exactly as I'd left it, but something was off. My journals were rewritten. My name had been removed from every page. The mural I painted on the cabin wall of the 12 liberations had been crossed out, replaced with a new symbol I didn't recognize. I wasn't the shepherd anymore. Rain was. They now called her the true seeker. And me? They didn't speak to me, didn't see me. I lived among them for 2 more months, unacknowledged, invisible, like a ghost trapped in a dream I couldn't wake from. I thought I created the cult, that I had manipulated broken people into believing my lies, but now I wonder, what if I was the only one who got lured in? What if the cult was already buried beneath the trees waiting for someone to wear the mask long enough until it found the real prophet it needed? My uncle was always a little off, the kind of man who'd stare too long at static on the TV as if waiting for it to talk back. As a kid, I just thought he was weird. You know, the eccentric one in the family. But as I got older, I realized it was something darker. He was once brilliant. Gerald Whitmore, tenure-track physicist, MIT-level genius. But his career ended in flames when he tried to publish a paper claiming that reality had a vibrational signature that could be decoded like a song. He called it the true resonance beneath all things. The scientific community called it psychosis. When he was fired, he vanished for almost 10 years. No contact, no letters, not even a Christmas card. Then in 2009, he suddenly resurfaced, but this time as a different man. His hair was long and greying, his voice slower, calmer, like someone always half asleep. And the most shocking part was he had followers. He'd bought land deep in rural Oregon. No phone lines, no power grid, just trees, fog, and a place he named the Resonance Compound. He claimed he'd discovered a divine frequency, a tone that allowed the soul to detach from the body. He said the world we live in was dissonant and corrupted, but through that frequency he claimed you could retune yourself and transcend. He never called it a cult, but they wore robes, they shaved their heads, they spoke in tones instead of words sometimes. These strange, low, guttural hums that didn't feel human. It felt wrong, like their mouths were saying something ancient, something they didn't invent. Then in 2010, my mum begged me to check on him, as she hadn't heard from Gerald in years. So I drove up into the Cascades, alone. The place was hidden behind an iron gate, carved with geometric patterns that made my eyes hurt if I stared too long. There were no signs, no guard, just mist, trees, and silence thick enough to choke you. I walked in and nobody greeted me. No cell service, no lights, just a cluster of wooden cabins. And in the center, a massive dome-like structure built out of wood and copper. It felt alive, like it was listening. I found my uncle inside the dome, cross-legged. His eyes were shut, palms up, humming something that vibrates in my bones. When he opened his eyes, he smiled wide, too wide. "You're just in time," he said. "We are almost ready." I asked what he meant. He said, "The vessel is nearly complete. Soon we'll all ascend out of phase, out of disharmony, out of this noise." I thought he meant a spaceship, but then he showed me the so-called vessel. It was this massive, impossible-looking contraption in the center of the dome. Copper coils, shattered mirrors, weird brass tuning forks, what looked like old organ pipes, and parts of wind chimes strung together into this thing. It made a noise when you got close, a low droning, like a growl beneath the earth. He said it would resonate the soul from the flesh, a complete shedding. I asked if it was safe. He just smiled and said, "Safety is dissonance, resisting." I left that same night. I couldn't sleep. I swear the ground was vibrating, like the compound was breathing. A year later, I got a call from the county sheriff. The compound had been found abandoned. cabins untouched, food still on the table, clothes folded, books open, but not a single person. Not my uncle, not a single follower. They hadn't packed, there were no tracks, no vehicles moved, no cameras, no electronics. Nothing. Inside the dome they found the machine fried from the inside, like it had short-circuited in a fire, but there were no scorch marks around it, just the machine itself. And on the walls, dozens of black handprints, pressed high above head level, almost scraping the ceiling like they'd been reaching for something above them. The official report called it a voluntary mass disappearance. No evidence of a crime, no bodies, no footprints. But how do 20 people just vanish like that? I went back in 2017. The cabins were collapsing, trees had grown through the floorboards. The dome was still standing, covered in moss, but the air inside, it was vibrating. Still after all these years. Not a sound you could hear, but one you could feel, like it was still humming. Here's the part I never told anyone. The night I left, I stole something, a small tuning fork from the machine. It was just sitting on the edge of a table, humming faintly. I don't know why I took it, maybe to prove to myself that it was real. Every few months I take it out. And even though no one ever strikes it, sometimes it hums. Soft, faint, but impossible to ignore. Lately, the hum's getting louder. Last night it made the pictures on my walls tilt. Sometimes I dream about my uncle again. His voice echoing through static, whispering in that awful, inhuman tone. And sometimes I think he didn't vanish at all. Maybe he ascended, maybe they all did, and maybe the fork is a kind of beacon, and one day it's going to start humming loud enough for them to find me. But not all cults begin with twisted machines or fringe beliefs. Sometimes the darkest ones hide behind normality, until the truth tears it all apart. In 5th grade, I asked Lily why she never came to birthday parties. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "We don't celebrate the birthday, we celebrate the eternal return." I thought she meant reincarnation. I was into weird books back then, but then she added, "Birth is a forgetting, return is remembering. You'll understand when your blood learns the hum." I didn't know what to say to that. After that, I noticed more things. Her clothes always looked handmade, stitched with these tiny thread patterns I didn't recognize. She never carried a backpack, just a small leather-bound book she never let anyone touch. And sometimes, when class was quiet, I'd glance over and see her lips moving but no sound coming out. Once I walked her home. She didn't invite me in, but I lingered across the street. Her house looked normal from the outside, but as the sun went down, I noticed that every window was covered with black cloth nailed over the glass, and then I heard it. A slow, steady hum which wasn't coming from a machine and not from a song, but just a sound, deep, primal, like something ancient breathing beneath the floorboards, and I swear I saw shadows moving behind the curtains, not walking but twisting. I told myself I imagined it. I didn't want to believe it was real. By the time we reached high school, Lily started to fade. Her skin looked pale, almost translucent. Her eyes had this dilated emptiness, like she wasn't fully inside herself anymore. She never smiled. She stopped answering questions in class and only spoke in fragments. She started carrying a notebook filled with cryptic drawings, equations, and the same sentence written over and over again. The soul bends before it breaks. Once she slipped a folded piece of paper into my locker. It was a hand-drawn diagram. A circle surrounded by spirals and triangles with one line scrawled beneath it. "Do not speak when the stillness comes." When I asked her what it meant, she said, "It's not for now, it's for after." Then she walked away like she didn't expect me to see her again. Then she disappeared. It was our senior year, 2nd semester. One Monday morning, she just didn't show up. Neither did her parents. No goodbyes, no warning. Her teachers claimed the family moved suddenly, but no one knew where. I rode my bike to her house that afternoon. It was empty. I mean, totally empty. The curtains were gone, the furniture too. Even the mailbox was missing, like it had never been there at all. It was like the whole family had evaporated. I tried searching, no forwarding address, no social media, no paper trail. It was like they never existed, like they'd been erased. Years passed and I tried to forget, but she haunted me, especially that strange sentence she'd given me. Do not speak when the stillness comes. I didn't understand it until recently. 3 months ago, I was in Arizona on a work trip. I stopped at a cafe just to grab coffee and scroll through my phone. As I was zoning out, that's when I heard a soft voice say my name. I looked up and there she was, Lily. She hadn't aged a day. Not really. Her skin was flawless but unnaturally so, porcelain smooth. Her eyes, God, her eyes, too wide and too clear, like glass marbles with something moving behind them. She smiled, sat across from me like we were still in high school. I didn't even get a chance to ask a question before she said, "We knew you'd come back into orbit. The spiral always brings us home." I asked where she'd been. She said, "Traveling with the circle." I asked if that meant a cult. She laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Then she leaned in so close I could feel her breath and whispered, "It's not a cult if your soul already chose it before birth." I asked about her parents. Her face twitched for a second, but then she whispered, "They crossed, but the hum remembers them. You will too." And just like that, she stood up and walked away. No goodbye, no hesitation. And when I followed her out of the door, she was already gone. Completely gone. Like she'd stepped sideways out of this world. And since then, I haven't seen her. Recently, I started noticing that I now hear things at night when everything's quiet. I hear the hum coming from inside the walls, not loud but deep, like a voice that isn't meant for the ears. I've had electricians tear the place apart but find nothing, even brought in audio tech, and they said it's not a sound, it's resonance, whatever that means. But the worst part, I've started seeing things, seeing shadows that move wrong and reflections that linger too long. Once, in the mirror, I saw a spiral carved faintly into the skin beneath my collarbone. It was gone when I looked again, but I remember the shape. I know I didn't put it there. Then something happened that made me start sleeping with the lights on. Last week, I opened my mailbox. No mail, no bills, just one thing. A folded piece of paper. On it were hand-drawn symbols, spirals, triangles, and in the center, "Do not speak when the stillness comes." The same handwriting from high school, the same words, but this time there was something else written in red ink beneath it. "You are almost ready." Now every night the hum gets louder, and last night the silence came. It was thick and alive. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring because it's too perfect. I almost screamed, but I remembered the message. Do not speak. So I sat in the dark with my heart pounding, making sure I wasn't making any sound. And I swear I heard her voice humming through the floorboards. Lily's voice. And dozens more. In harmony, calling something. Not words, just vibrations perfectly in sync, like a choir of the dead calling something ancient. I grabbed my keys. I was ready to leave, to run. But as I stepped toward the door, I couldn't move. Not that I was frozen or paralyzed, but held like the air had thickened around me, pressing down, weighing on every limb. And then I remembered what Lily whispered in the cafe. You were always meant to hear the hum. And what she wrote all those years ago. Do not speak when the stillness comes. I stood there, trembling, as the sound grew deeper and deeper until the walls stopped vibrating. Until everything stopped. Time, breath, thought. The stillness had come, and I didn't speak. Maybe the cult never needed a compound. Maybe it just needed a seed, planted long ago in someone like me. And maybe I was never meant to run, or maybe the stillness is already here. Some cults don't need temples, while some don't need leaders in robes or remote compounds hidden in the woods. Sometimes they just need time, a whisper in childhood, a friend with distant eyes, a symbol drawn in a notebook, and when the stillness comes, you don't run but remember. Because maybe it's not about joining them, but about becoming what you were always meant to be. If you heard the hum too, hit like, subscribe, and share your story below. Someone's always listening.